All right, everyone, we're going to get started. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. This is another one of our campus-wide meetings as we've been managing and navigating the COVID pandemic and the financial troubles that the state and the university are facing and likely to face in the future. Joining us today, and thank you for joining us today, our Vice President for Community Colleges, Erica Lacroix, and Associate Vice President, Mike Winabasami, that are going to be able to share a little bit more of the UHCC United approach to how we're going to be managing some of this, paving a little bit of a picture and as to visioning on how we'll be able to navigate the coming months and years to help address our financial struggles. And so with that, I'm going to let our leader, Vice President Lacroix, the mic.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Leeward Community College. I just want to say welcome to all of our faculty, staff, and administration. I want to thank you for the incredible hard work we all faced in mid-March when we had to pivot to online learning. I also want to thank you for taking the initiative to complete our students that needed hours of instruction once we had to press pause and come back and finish them so we didn't delay them from continuing in the fall. I really appreciate that. You should be really proud of all the work you've done in planning for fall and the creativeness and innovation needed to deliver services and support to our students. I think we all hoped things would be in a better state, but unfortunately they're not. As COVID continues to affect our state and our economy, of course, each day that state funding hole in terms of our budget gets bigger and bigger. And that's side by side with all the other state funded agencies that we sit with under the state umbrella. So reopening the economy is really key to that, but we want to do it in a safe manner. At this point, there have been multiple budget presentations given to the Board of Regents. All of those can be found online at the Board of Regents resources site, which is the Hawai'i.edu Board of Regents. They're useful to look through as you will be able to see the regents are asking some very hard questions of the university and how we plan to move forward. At last week's meeting, it was made very clear by the regents that they're looking for actions the university will implement in order to manage our finances. At this point in time, the university is faced with over $100 million shortfall. That's just the year that we're looking at now. We are planning fiscally for how we manage that challenge. I see that in two phases. In terms of funding, getting through fiscal year 2021, which is what we're sitting in now. We've done a number of things. You know that there have been hiring freezes, travel bans, deferral of equipment purchases, and system-wide restrictions. We'll be forced to use some of our reserves to just get through this year. The last we were looking at last week was about 6.2 million, and might have some more updated numbers for us today, but that's in the realm of what it's looking like it's going to take for us to just get through this year. But getting through fiscal year 2021 is much simpler than planning for fiscal year 2022 and beyond, I would say. This is not going to be a short-term problem. We saw a presentation by UHERO to the Board of Regents last week that talked about the recovery of the state and getting back to where we were. And we saw multiple scenarios, some lasting 4 years, some lasting up to 7. So this is not a short-term fix by any means. So Carlos, can you go to slide 2? Many of you will have seen the resolution passed by the Board of Regents at last month's meeting. The regents are very focused on ensuring the university has a plan. Getting through AY21, like I said, with the use of reserves is a little easier, but beyond this year, that is not a doable process. We don't have reserves to carry us through such large drops in our general fund. So the board is really looking for us to move swiftly. Much more of that was communicated at last week's Board of Regents meeting, and if you reflect back on those minutes, you'll see that. This is a difficult process because to date, we don't know what our state budget allocation is for this year, and we're already well into September. We've heard the governor discuss furloughs, and it's still unknown in terms of are those going to happen or not, and how that affects our budget planning. What we do know is that we're going to have to make changes. We're being asked to right-size the university units, and that is being asked of all units. The leading questions are, what does Hawaii need from the university without being everything to everyone? Carlos, go forward to slide 3, please. The plan to reduce expenses is our utmost priority at this time. Looking at our facilities, our personnel, and our operating budgets, and seeing how we can get better alignment with shared administrative and support functions, while also looking at possible program consolidations, better sharing, realignment, and elimination. And last slide. We know when our economy eventually returns, there will be changes needed to educate citizens to operate in new and emerging economies, which we can't exactly forecast at this point in time. With the need to utilize more technology in our delivery, given the situation, we have seen how students have responded, and we should think about flexible educational delivery options for both our traditional students and our students that are going to be coming to us to retool for another career. Areas like education, healthcare, social work, construction and trades, computer science and engineering, creative industries, climate change, energy, agriculture, and sustainable tourism are some that President Lasner has really pulled out at areas to look at for future. So as I finish up here before we turn it over to Mike to talk more about numbers, it's really key to remember that we all have important missions. Units are being asked to closely review how we look at our operations and what we offer in terms of credit and non-credit programs. So I'd like to end with just saying all ideas are certainly welcome. Each chancellor has been asked to convene their campus budget groups or their governance groups to discuss different ideas. I also am convening the governance groups that work with my office, and these are all made up of folks from the individual campuses. So whether it's the CC Strategic Planning Council or the CC Faculty Senate Chairs, we're getting all of those rolling now. But we know the regents are going to want to see a plan of action soon. And that's why I'm really asking Carlos and the other chancellors to push on getting feedback from our campuses. So with that, I'm going to end and turn it over to Mike Kunabasami.
Aloha, everybody. Okay, I've shared screen. I hope all of you can see that. I cannot believe it's been 27 years since I left Leeward to come to this office over here. That really, really ages me. And I have to admit, I still miss Leeward Community College. Anyway, unfortunately, I'm not the bearer of good news coming back to Leeward. What I'm going to do is present a framework that outlines our FY21 expenditure plan, which is this year. And how it differs and what we're expected to do, and the parameters upon which we come up with our estimates. First, there are certain assumptions that the university administration and the board wanted us to do to use in coming up with this year's expenditure plan. The first is, while we don't have anything from the governor's office at this point in time, we are working on a 16% restriction off of the supplemental budget total. The legislature decided not to adjust the second year of the biennium, which is this fiscal year. So we still are at the high level, which was appropriated 2 years ago. For tuition and fees, we basically took into account a point in time. And what you see here for the overall is what the community colleges forecasted about 2 weeks ago. And the presentation is basically only on tuition and fee and general funds. It does not include other sources of funds that the colleges have, which includes your community college special funds, revolving funds, federal funds, etc. And it talks about the use of our carry forward reserves. This is just to give you an idea of, for the major units, what we had in general funds and tuition and fee in 2020, which is last year, and how that compares to what we expect to get this year as far as revenues are concerned. So you can see that every unit is, quote, suffering a reduction in what we have compared to last year. For the entire university, we're looking at a 66% decrease in, $66 million decrease in general fund allocation. And again, this is not, for you math majors out there, this does not equate to a 16% reduction if you look at the numbers. And that's because the 16% is based on the current appropriation amount. And the blue line there is what we actually spent or got last year. So it's more like 13% for the community colleges. This just gives you the numbers of what the bar graph represented. And what it shows in the end is that after taking certain kinds of reductions, the university's units would be spending $61 million of its carry forward reserves. So you see that the ending balance goes from 165 million to 105 million. So for the university as an aggregate, again, we're looking at a decline of $92 million overall. And that's where you get the rounded estimate of $100 million that Calvert Young, our Vice President CFO, presented to the Board of Regents. I'm sure this is what you're more interested in. This is for the community colleges. Just to give you an idea of the assumptions that we use going into formulating our expenditure plan for the community colleges. Regular payroll. What we included here are all filled positions. We did not include any monies for any vacancies that may be filled along the way. It does include all filled positions charged to the general fund, as well as tuition and fee. It does include all collective bargaining augmentations, with the exception of the one-time negotiated retro amounts. As you know, the legislature passed the collective bargaining increases for all units. And because it's not on his veto list, it will become law whether he signs it or not on September 15th. So the university is already preparing documents to get these pay raises to all of our employees. Faculty should have gotten theirs that was negotiated in their 4-year contract 2 years ago. Lecture expenditures. We have seen that our enrollment has gone down. So we introduced a 25% reduction in lecture expenditures. Overtime and overload, we reduced that by 75%, and casuals by another 75%. And this is all based on last year's actual expenditures. We reduced student help by 25%, and because of the situation that we're in, this may be even greater, because I don't think we have a whole lot of students coming to work because many of our offices are in fact closed, or people are working from home. Because of our travel ban, we reduced travel both out of state and inter island by 100%. We did reduce utilities by 20%. And in looking at the actual kilowatt hours that our campuses are using during the fourth quarter, the fourth quarter of last year, actually, we're already seeing drastic reductions, as much as 40% on some campuses in kilowatt hours. So this 20% reduction may be even greater. For equipment, for the campuses, we reduced everything by 100%. So there are no allocations for equipment at the campuses. We do have monies in our office for emergencies that may arise at the campuses that we would fund from our office here. And all other current expense were reduced by another 25%. And again, depending on whether we continue to do, this online and work from home, I can see other current expenses being reduced by even more in actuality during this fiscal year. So for the community colleges, we looked at a general fund allocation reduction of $20.2 million. Again, that's not 16%, that's only about 13% as compared to last year. For tuition and fee, initially we looked at a decrease of about $10.7 million. And to make up any shortfalls after we took these reductions in expenditures, we're looking at dipping into our carry forward balances of $6.2 million. So here you have just the figures that were depicted on the bar graph. For Leeward Community College, you can thank Carlos and Manny before, and Mark Lane for really taking a great financial picture, or providing a great financial picture for Leeward. They've been very astute in managing your finances at the campus. So you see that Leeward started with a tuition and fee ending balance of $8.5 million. And given the expenditure plan, we're looking at using $2.1 million of that carry forward, which still leaves you with $6.4 million. Now, understand, when you look at this, you will think that there's no crisis here. We have a lot of money. If we're only using $2.1 million of the carry forward, and we have another 6 left, that should carry us for another 2-3 years. Well, I don't think it's as simple as that. We do not expect the economy to rebound in the next 2-3 years. In fact, the Council of Revenues met yesterday, and they came up with their revised estimates of revenues for the state. The last estimate was done back in May. And just to give you some idea of the magnitude of the numbers that we're looking at, prior to 2019, we were collecting over $8 billion and spending approximately $8 billion of state revenues on an annual basis. In 2019, we collected $7.1 billion. So already in 19, there was a decrease. The projection for 2020 was $6.7 billion. And in 21, they revised the estimate. And, I'm really surprised at what they came up with, because their initial reduction in May, the forecast for 21 was a minus 12%. They revised that to 11%, which means that they anticipate $113 million more revenues by the state as compared to their estimate in May. Now, this was yesterday. And, you know, we're going through our second shutdown. We're delaying tourism coming in. The tourist industry isn't going to rebound as quickly as we would like it to see it. And yet they have increased the revenue projection for this year, which is rather surprising. But the point that I want to make here is their projection for 2027, which is 6 years from now, is only $7.787 billion. So even after 6 years, we're not back at even the $8 billion that we were at a couple of years ago. So we need to look at this not as a short-term kind of situation, but something that we're going to have to deal with for several years to come. And I will stop there and entertain any questions that you might have.
So there was one question posted if you're not looking at the chat box, and it was Eileen asked what were in other current expenses, and Mark was real quick to answer. Thank you, Mark. But he said travel, supplies, materials, and equipment. Those are the main components. There's a question, Mike, about how much more will be taken from Leeward to subsidize the other campuses.
You know, we're sticking by whatever tuition and fee monies and other community college special fund revenues that each campus generates stays with the campus. We do have dollars in general funds in our office that we will use to cover shortfalls for other campuses that may be there, where they're not as, and have not been as frugal as before, or as Leeward. But no, we do not anticipate taking monies from Leeward to give to other campuses. Will there be salary and program cuts? Salary reductions, the governor has talked about furloughs. It's kind of common, you know, it's been talked about and then not talked about and talked about and not talked about. So I think we need to wait and see as to what happens with furloughs. All of that needs to be negotiated with the unions. So we're not sure at this point what may happen with any kind of pay reductions for any period of time. I know that there was talk at one time of a 10% furlough, which would last like 2, 3, 4 years. But that discussion has kind of faded. So again, we're not sure what will happen with that. When you talk about program cuts, that's something that Erica mentioned earlier. The board and has asked the administration, we need to take a look at all of the things that we may have to do in order to reduce our expenditures going forward. So it's not just program cuts, but you know, restructuring, doing things more efficiently, which may or may not result in, well, we're looking for savings, obviously. You know, when we talk about not having $100 million that the university needs to cut somewhere, it's going to result in something being cut out.
So there's a question about potential long-term harms and consolidation. Those are things that we have to balance as we come up with a plan on how we deal with these long-term fiscal consequences of COVID. We have 4 campuses on Oahu, all within miles of each other, all having some type of duplication somewhere. So those are things we really need to think about. And that's why I've asked your chancellors to convene the groups on your campus to have conversations about that and get some ideas. Some campuses have come up with some pretty creative lists so far, which are good to see that people are thinking about this. There's a question about consolidation of system administrative offices. Yes, that is a consideration. I was asked by another campus if administrative positions were also being evaluated. Yes, they are, just so you're aware. There's a question about performance-based funding, Mike, and will we suspend that? That is our bucket that is going to bail us out of this, at least in the short term, is that those reserves, or that's part of those reserves. But I don't know if Mike has something to add.
There were tuition and fee dollars that we were getting from the campuses and redistributing that back to campuses depending on what they were for. A portion of that was performance-based, a portion of that was for equipment, a portion of that was for enrollment growth monies and things like that. Because of the situation that we're in, we have suspended pulling those funds from the campuses. So the only thing that we have continued to pull from the campuses are the 2% tuition increases that were dedicated and justified for equipment replacement, which is why we have that pot of money here. And also for the 2%, which added up for 3 years to $3 million in total for R&M kinds of things that, again, is used as an emergency pot that we have here to fund things that happen on the campuses, that so that the campuses don't have to worry about funding those emergencies that come up. But the other kinds of dollars that we were taking, not taking, but everybody was contributing to, we suspended doing that this year, given the situation.
There's a question about some of the comments that came in from other campuses. I've not seen all their comments, but the chancellors are telling me that they're getting some good feedback. But I have seen everything from buy less toilet paper, which is by all means not going to get us out of a $100 million deficit, to program consolidation, sharing of curriculum. We've learned a lot doing things online, that it is very possible we don't all have to be doing the same thing in the same place. And then statistics about attendance, a lot of that is available on hawaii.edu/IRAO. That's public information. I don't believe students will go island to island for a particular program. That's my honest opinion. Any other questions?
Hello, Erica and Mike and Carlos and everyone else. Thank you for organizing this meeting. I have a simple question, and so far I'm hearing mostly about cutting corners here and there, and I would like to know if there are some strategies on raising revenue by increasing enrollments and other activities in various campuses. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So we worked really hard over the summer to drive up enrollment. We know that when DOE took its exodus to online, we lost our window to recruit a lot of the high school students that we would normally be bringing in. So we put together a program over the summer that helps students take a course and get some career counseling and help point them to careers within the CCs that they could think about going into. We've also implemented some rapid response money to offer scholarships to folks that had been displaced by their employer due to COVID. So we're trying to get more people in. In terms of more revenue generating, the biggest bang for our buck, I think, and Mike can add his 2 cents, but I think is going to be commercializing some of our property. As rail comes on live, we're going to have some really big opportunities at Leeward and Honolulu to lease out some commercialized space. Your non-credit offerings are working really hard to put together different programs for people who need to think about going into different workforce scenarios. And that also comes as additional funding in most cases to you. So Mike, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you've covered it well.
Thank you both. I am the chair of the Senate Budget Committee, and we are in the process of coming up with some ideas to increase enrollments, and we are just hoping that we get some support. Thank you very much.
You will get any support you need. So you give me those ideas.
Thank you, Erica, and say hi to that.
Yeah.
You know, we were rather disappointed with the lack of Horizon enrollment. If you look back to the 2008-2009 recession that we went through, our enrollment really skyrocketed as soon as people started losing jobs and things like that. This pandemic is creating a different kind of situation for some whatever reason, and I don't know what the reasons are, where students are not coming back to our campuses to get retrained, to get more training, you know, to get whatever certificates or changing of jobs and that sort of thing. And that's been a little disappointing. We were hoping that that would happen. Now, there are 2 effects on that. One, because of our low tuition, the fact that enrollment goes up doesn't necessarily mean that while revenues may go up, expenditures may go up faster than revenues. The community colleges are 70% general funded and 30% tuition and fee funded for our basic operations. So if the 30% side goes up, but the 70% side goes down, that means we get less subsidy from the state. And it hurts us more at a certain point in time, where the balance between general fund support and tuition gets out of balance. And, you know, we keep saying that we need a break-even point of almost 20 students in a class to pay for a lecturer, just to fund the personnel that we need to teach the class. So we're in a somewhat different situation. When we were in this situation back in 2009, we got support from the legislature. We weren't getting cut. We actually got enrollment growth monies, both from the legislature and through the arrow monies and things like that. So this is a different kind of situation. We do want to see enrollment increasing without question. The more we serve, the better our community is in the end, and that's what we're here for. But you know, we need to balance the financial side as well.
Thank you, Mike. I think you will be hearing from our campus in the near future about increased enrollment. Thanks.
Good.
Good.
That's excellent. I see a question about what happens to offices such as student services. So we know we have students, we've seen this in surveys, and as I convene the UHCC strategic planning group today, your faculty senate chair is going to see some survey results from pushing everybody online. Students did struggle. So students still need to be able to walk in and see us. So even if it's staggered remote type operations, your campuses are gonna have to figure out how to be there when the students need them. We've really taken a hard lesson from, you know, watching poor students have to access internet from their cars in our parking lots and things like that. So we do need to be there open for them, but to be safe, we don't need to be in full operation, but I'm leaving that to your campus chancellors to figure out along with your units. And then there's a question about closing an Oahu campus. I will tell you quite honestly that that has come up several times. There's a NPR interview by our president where the interviewer actually asked that question, and she said she had heard it come up. So, I mean, I don't know where that's circulating. I know we've been asked by our board and the people we're accountable to, you know, why do you have so many campuses? So I'm really trying at this point to protect our mission, because our mission is very unique to us. But in the same sense, we have a fiscal responsibility to react to this and not just point to the others in the system to say this is for them to deal with and not us. I'm trying to keep all of our campuses within their physical presence. I will tell you that. That is my goal. Any other questions? If not, I encourage you to email myself directly. My email is lacroix@hawaii.edu. You can also email Mike or Carlos, and Carlos can get any questions to us or ideas that you may have. But I know you'll be working as a Leeward group to help get suggestions our way. So with that, Carlos, I'll let you wrap it up.
All right, well, with that, thanks everyone for joining us today. A big mahalo to Mike and Erica for sharing with us some of what is being shared with all of the other CCs and alignment so that we're all on the same page. And we will continue working on our plans and our ideas to help support our budgetary shortfalls. And so with that, again, thanks everyone. I appreciate the time and appreciate all of the creativity that comes after this. So thank you.
Aloha. Take care.